In this episode, we are stepping into a topic that sits at the heart of organizational resilience, because every business eventually faces some kind of disruption, and the real question is whether it can keep operating when normal conditions suddenly disappear. Business continuity management, BCM, is the discipline of preparing the organization to continue delivering critical products and services during and after a disruption, even when systems, facilities, staff, vendors, or normal workflows are under pressure. For a brand new learner, that can sound like a technical emergency plan, but it is much broader than that. It is about protecting the organization's ability to function when something important goes wrong. Once you see BCM that way, it becomes much easier to understand why it belongs in CRISC. CRISC is not only about preventing bad things from happening. It is also about making sure the organization can absorb disruption, adapt under stress, and keep moving without losing control of what matters most. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A useful place to begin is by clearing up what BCM really means in practice. Many people first hear the phrase and assume it refers only to restoring computer systems after a failure, but that is too narrow. BCM includes technology, of course, yet it also includes people, business processes, facilities, communication, vendors, and the practical workarounds that allow an organization to keep serving customers or carrying out its mission during a difficult period. A hospital may need patient care to continue even if some systems are degraded. A bank may need payment processing and customer support to remain available during a major outage. A manufacturer may need certain production activities to continue even if a key supplier or system fails. The main principle is continuity of important operations, not the perfection of normal operations. BCM accepts that disruption happens and focuses on how the organization continues functioning at an acceptable level until full stability can be restored. It also helps to separate BCM from a few related ideas that are often mentioned alongside it. Disaster Recovery Management, DRM, focuses more specifically on restoring technology and data after a serious interruption. Incident Response concentrates on identifying, containing, and handling a security event or operational issue that threatens systems or information. Crisis Management deals more with executive leadership, public communication, and high-level coordination during major events. BCM connects with all of these, but it has a different center of gravity. It asks how the organization keeps essential operations going when bad conditions are already present. That might involve alternate work locations, manual procedures, backup suppliers, remote work arrangements, emergency communication plans, or temporary service reductions based on business priority. In a real event, these disciplines overlap constantly, which is why mature organizations coordinate them. Still, for beginners, it is helpful to remember that BCM is primarily about continuity of business operations, not simply recovery of individual technical components. One of the most important ideas in BCM is that not everything can be treated as equally critical during disruption. Organizations have limited time, limited people, limited alternate capacity, and limited tolerance for confusion when pressure is high. That means they need to understand which services, processes, and assets matter most to survival, trust, safety, legal duty, and customer obligations. A company may want every function restored immediately, but in reality, some things must come first. This is why continuity planning begins with identifying critical business activities rather than starting with a list of servers or software tools. The organization needs to know what services generate revenue, fulfill legal obligations, protect life or safety, preserve customer trust, or prevent severe operational harm if they stop. Once those priorities are clear, continuity decisions become far more practical. Instead of attempting to preserve everything in exactly the same way, the organization can focus its continuity efforts where interruption would create the most serious consequences. That priority-setting work is closely tied to a business impact analysis, BIA, which is one of the most useful concepts in continuity planning. ABIA helps the organization understand what happens if important processes are interrupted, how quickly those impacts grow, and what resources are needed to keep critical work functioning. It is not just a paperwork exercise. It is a structured way of identifying which business activities matter most, what they depend on, and how much downtime or degradation can be tolerated before the impact becomes unacceptable. ABIA may reveal financial harm, legal exposure, reputational damage, operational breakdown, customer dissatisfaction, or safety concerns that would result from a prolonged outage. It also helps connect business needs to continuity strategies. If a key process cannot be interrupted for long, that finding should shape staffing decisions, technology resilience, communication plans, and alternate operating methods. For CRISC learners, the bigger lesson is that continuity planning should follow business impact, not personal opinion or whatever department speaks the loudest. Dependencies are another critical part of BCM because organizations rarely fail in neat, isolated ways. A business process that looks simple from the outside may depend on multiple systems, people, facilities, vendors, communication paths, and support functions that all have to work together. A customer service operation may rely on network connectivity, identity systems, call routing, trained staff, knowledge bases, and building access, all at the same time. If any one of those pieces fails, the service may slow down or stop entirely. This is why continuity planning needs dependency mapping rather than surface-level assumptions. New learners often think continuity is about preserving one obvious process, but in practice, continuity depends on everything behind that process as well. Understanding those relationships helps the organization recognize single points of failure, hidden concentrations of risk, and weak assumptions about what will remain available during a disruption. It also helps reveal where alternate methods are needed because the primary way of operating depends on too many fragile or interconnected components. Once priorities and dependencies are understood, the organization can think more clearly about continuity strategies. A continuity strategy is the practical approach used to keep important work going when normal conditions are unavailable. Sometimes that means alternate facilities, remote work arrangements, cross-trained staff, backup communication channels, or temporary manual procedures. Sometimes it means prearranged vendor support, additional inventory, resilient infrastructure, or service redesign that allows the organization to operate in a reduced but still acceptable state. The point is not to preserve every routine exactly as it normally works. The point is to maintain critical outcomes under pressure. This is a key mindset shift for beginners because continuity is often about adaptation rather than perfect replication. A process may continue in a slower, simplified, or more heavily supervised form until normal operations return. Good BCM planning recognizes that temporary workarounds are not signs of failure. They are often the very mechanisms that allow the organization to survive disruption without losing its most important capabilities. Governance and ownership matter just as much as strategy because continuity plans do not execute themselves. During disruption, people need to know who can declare a continuity event, who decides which services receive priority, who communicates with employees and customers, and who has authority to activate alternate operating methods. If those questions are unclear, even a well-written plan can turn into confusion at the moment it is needed most. Business leaders, continuity coordinators, technology teams, facilities personnel, communications staff, human resources, risk leaders, and senior executives may all have roles in keeping the organization functioning. That means BCM is not just a document owned by one department. It is a coordinated management capability that depends on clear responsibility across the enterprise. For someone studying CRISC, this is a central theme. Risk management improves when accountability is visible and specific. Continuity becomes stronger when ownership is assigned in advance, expectations are understood, and leaders treat continuity readiness as an ongoing responsibility rather than a one-time planning project. Communication is another major practice within BCM because disruption creates uncertainty, and uncertainty becomes much worse when people do not know what is happening or what they are expected to do. Employees may need instructions about alternate work methods, reporting expectations, safety information, or temporary changes in authority and process. Customers may need updates on service delays, alternate support options, or when normal operations are expected to resume. Vendors and partners may need coordination so shared processes continue or recovery efforts align. Strong continuity planning, therefore, includes communication channels, message ownership, escalation paths, and fallback options for situations where primary communication tools are unavailable. A common mistake is assuming that email, messaging platforms, or internal portals will always be accessible during a disruptive event. Mature BCM planning asks what happens if those channels fail too. The broader lesson is that continuity depends not only on action, but also on coordinated understanding. People cannot help sustain operations if they do not know the status, the priorities, or the actions expected of them. People-related continuity is especially important because organizations often focus first on systems and buildings while underestimating how much disruption can come from staffing issues. Employees may be unavailable because of illness, travel restrictions, transportation problems, regional emergencies, family obligations, or unsafe facility conditions. Specialized knowledge may sit with only a few individuals, making certain processes fragile if those people cannot work. This is why good continuity practice includes cross-training, role clarity, succession planning, remote capability where appropriate, and realistic assumptions about who will actually be available during a major event. It also includes consideration for employee well-being, because people under prolonged stress do not make perfect decisions and cannot sustain emergency performance forever. For beginners, this is an important reminder that continuity is not just about keeping machines running. Organizations survive disruption through people making decisions, communicating clearly, following alternate procedures, and supporting each other under strain. If the human side of continuity is weak, even strong technical resilience may not translate into business continuity in the way leaders expected. Third-party dependence makes continuity planning even more complex because many organizations rely on outside providers for technology, logistics, cloud services, payment processing, facilities support, manufacturing inputs, or specialized business functions. That means continuity risk can originate far beyond the organization's own walls. A vendor outage, transportation breakdown, supplier shortage, cloud region failure, or managed service disruption can quickly become a business continuity issue even if the organization's internal teams are ready and capable. Effective BCM, therefore, includes understanding which third parties support critical operations, what commitments exist, how much concentration risk is present, and what alternatives are available if an external provider cannot deliver. A new learner may assume vendor management and business continuity are separate topics, but they are closely linked. If an organization cannot continue operating without a single external provider, that relationship belongs at the center of continuity thinking. Strong continuity practices include reviewing external dependencies honestly and avoiding the false comfort of assuming key partners will always remain available under every condition. Testing and exercising are where continuity planning becomes real. A continuity plan may look impressive on paper and still fail badly if it contains outdated assumptions, unclear roles, impractical workarounds, or missing dependencies. Exercises help the organization learn whether people understand their responsibilities and whether continuity strategies actually make sense under realistic conditions. Some exercises are discussion-based and focus on decision-making, communication, and coordination. Others are more operational and test whether alternate processes, staffing plans, or technical failovers work the way the organization expects. The value of these activities is not to prove that everything is perfect. Their value is to expose weaknesses while the organization still has time to improve. A mature continuity program treats exercises as learning opportunities, not theater. For CRISC learners, this reinforces a broad principle that appears throughout risk management. Written intent is not the same as operational capability. Continuity must be practiced, reviewed, updated, and challenged if it is going to be dependable during real stress. Several common misconceptions can weaken BCM if they go uncorrected. One is the belief that continuity planning is only needed for rare catastrophic disasters, when in reality many smaller disruptions can still damage operations significantly if the organization is unprepared. Another is the idea that continuity belongs only to large enterprises with complex budgets and dedicated resilience teams. In truth, smaller organizations may be even more vulnerable because they have fewer resources and less redundancy when disruption hits. There is also a tendency to assume that if technology recovery is strong, business continuity is automatically strong too. That is not always true, because continuity also depends on people, communications, process adaptations, facilities, and third-party support. Some organizations also treat continuity documents as permanent once approved, even though business processes, vendors, staffing, locations, and systems change constantly. These misconceptions matter because they create false confidence. BCM is effective only when it reflects current reality and the organization's actual operating conditions. A simple scenario can help tie all of this together. Imagine a regional storm disrupts power, transportation, and building access for several days while also affecting some network services. The organization may not be dealing with a total collapse, but normal operations are clearly no longer possible. A strong BCM approach would already have identified which services must continue first, which staff can work remotely, which processes can shift to manual handling, which alternate communication methods are available, and which vendors must be contacted immediately. Leaders would have a clearer sense of who makes activation decisions, what messages go to employees and customers, and how long critical functions can operate in a degraded state before the impact becomes unacceptable. Without that preparation, the same event can quickly produce confusion, conflicting priorities, delayed response, and avoidable business damage. The lesson is that continuity is rarely about dramatic heroics in the moment. It is more often about whether the organization thought carefully in advance about how it would keep functioning when the ordinary way of working suddenly stops being possible. When you bring all of these ideas together, business continuity management becomes much easier to understand as a practical and strategic discipline rather than a folder of emergency documents. It is the ongoing effort to identify critical operations, understand dependencies, prepare alternate ways of working, assign ownership, communicate clearly, test assumptions, and keep the organization functioning through disruption. Strong BCM does not promise that nothing bad will happen. Instead, it helps ensure that disruption does not automatically turn into uncontrolled failure. For a new learner, that is the key takeaway. Risk management is not complete when threats are identified and controls are listed. It also requires the organization to ask how it will continue serving its purpose when conditions are at their worst. BCM provides that answer by turning resilience from a vague goal into a set of concepts and practices that support survival, trust, and operational stability when the normal path is no longer available.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.